morning, everybody, and welcome back to Devils United. We're back with a preview as Manchester United is taking on Brighton away. We've got Andy and Chloe today. Andy, how are you doing?
Not too bad. She's back. Maisy's back. I saw my little GIF that I did before when I was retweeting the tweet, but it's great to have you back. Mm-hmm. And obviously, miss you on a Monday.
Yeah, I've missed coming on, honestly, but you've done brilliant without me anyway. Chloe, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's good to have you back on, Maisy. We've missed you, but yeah, thanks for having me on as well.
Oh, you're welcome. Before we do go on to yesterday's game, just going to say hello, Ravi, thanks for coming in. Hope you are well. And hey there, Reese, thanks for coming in. Hope you are well also. I've highlighted your comments for questions. I'll go into it a bit later on. But we'll start with the Old Trafford game. As people would say, and I think this is the perfect way to describe the game, is a game of two halves. Let's just say I done the watch along. When it come by the time it was the end of the first half, I was very pissed off and I was ranting. I was basically ranting, and I was literally like, when obviously I go through the ratings and stuff at half time, I didn't even do it because I was ranting over a single comment because it was coming through. That was how bad I was doing it. But both Andy and Chloe was at Old Trafford. Andy, what did you think of the game?
It's funny. I know when Liverpool, I agree when you talk about game of two halves. I know when United are playing badly because typically Chloe doesn't speak to me as much during the game because I think she's kind of scared of what I'm going to say most of the time when it's very negative. So it's only after we scored a few that I got sort of a few comments in my ear and stuff like that. No, it was, it was exactly what you said. I mean, it was really, really poor in the first half. Really frustrating. I don't really know, considering we've got an overuse of wingers. Now, I know Chloe will probably have the answer to this because we had this conversation on the terrace on Saturday, but why you'd have Russo on the right and have a one striker being Paris is beyond me. I don't understand the logic between that and the god from Brum, Mr. Mark Skinner. I think Chloe first pointed out, and it's perfect true, that we seem to play to the level of the opposition that we've got. Now I have to defend Skinner on that because so do Barcelona. Like they drop down to the level that they're playing, but then they ratchet it up a little bit. And you could argue that's what we did second half and did really well getting the 4-0 win. But, before everyone forgets about the game, a few months' time, you'll look in the books and you'll say, okay, 4-0 against West Ham. That must have been pretty much a dollar, wasn't it? Well, actually, it was a bit more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chloe, what did you think of the game?
Yeah, it's exactly like what you said, Maisy. A game of two halves. First half we were really poor, and in terms of like what Andy was touching on about where Russo was playing and stuff, Cisco on the wing had Paris nailed. She was quicker than her. Paris needed to switch, and Russo was quicker on the wing, but she also switched with Lucia Garcia as well. So they were always playing inside and out. So for me, I think because Russo played on the wing last season, she knows what the wing's like. She can play there. And if she has to play there, then she'll play there. And Nikita, she can play up front. She can't just play in the wing. She can play through middle as well. So it's just good that we can see the switching in between players, even though we didn't get the goals from it. That's just what we were lacking in the first half. And for me, in the second half, I think when Lucia came on, the game changed, and I don't think we can say that it was down to him taking him. It was down to that Nikita was poor, because she wasn't poor. She was winning the ball and stuff. But Lucia had that pace. She was getting in the box. Even Lucia was getting in the middle. And Russo was on the wing or getting back a lot more. And for me, it just shows how much depth we do have in the squad and how much we can trust Leah Galton and Lucia Garcia going up the middle and allowing Leslie to get back and get the ball back up front and get the ball through the middle. So I think it's just good to see about the different perspectives of how the squad can adapt to changes, can adapt to certain plays in other squads. But I agree that Russo is our forward. She does need to play up front. But if we need to quickly change a tactic because Russo's got the ball and we need a crossing and she can only take it, and she's got to take it out. Nikita's got to come through the middle to take players out. Then that's probably what we've got to do. And if that leads to Russo having to stay on the wing for a few minutes whilst we've got the ball in play before we switch back, then if it works, then I think it should be kept like that. But if it doesn't, just make sure Russo stays in the middle. Don't play her as a winger.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, I just, you've got someone who does score goals, and yes, you can play on the wing, but why, you've got Leon on the bench, who, I'm sorry, I'm going to die on this hill, has definitely done something to upset Skinner. She's either challenged him or there's been some sort of, issue with it, behind closed doors, because there's no way that he would keep her off and say the things he does and leave her the way she was. You've got Garcia, which, okay, he did bring on, and credit to credit's due. He actually did do a substitution before 68th minute, directly behind where me and Chloe were. I think there was a bit of a sweepstake going on. He was saying 66, 62, 61. So he has changed it up a little bit, but it's such a difficult one because Lucia had a great. I mean, the 2 goals that she scored. I mean, apart from the positioning that she put in, the actual physical touch, the way she got the ball, especially on the second goal, that was a striker's finish, and she's not a striker; she's a winger. That the way she sort of just caught it with the side of the foot, sort of almost sort of kissed it over the line. It's really, really high quality. And it is interesting because it's not just us that are split, and we are split as a fan base. It's clear that there's issues within the squad because there's certain people who just won't get a game, whatever the hell they're doing, and there's other people where Skinner just stays with what he knows. But then I know he's also going to turn around and go, well, we won 4-0. What else? What else do you want? But it's just really hard to explain because, Ravi's mentioned this as well there about the.
I said that. I actually said that on the stream. I said, why are you playing torches at Old Trafford? What is it, a concert? What am I watching at Louis and Gallagher?
Yeah, that's what we chanted. I mean, it's weird because it was 4-0 win, and we were, and we always want to play better, but it is weird because I was saying this to another friend of mine, and it was like, I don't want to be seen as too negative, but it is hard. Like, at least Chloe's default is let's get behind the manager, let's get behind the players every single game until I'm proven otherwise. Whereas my default's a bit like let's get behind the players and let's tolerate Skinner until he does something that's all right. Which at her way is a much better way of living, to be honest. I'm trying to get a little bit more like that. But the first half was awful. Just touching on the light show thing. I don't know. I mean, I could spend hours on this, so I won't rob it. But like, I know what your view, Chloe, and Maisy after this, but my view was it was ridiculous. Like, I don't know if in the Euros it was a set thing that they had someone in the crowd that started it, because why would everyone just suddenly do the whole, Westlife tribute act thing going on? But they did do that. We also had a band again, which nobody wants. And, all right, they did start playing some of our songs, but that's not the history of Man United. We don't have a band. It's not part of our culture, just like having a drum is not part of our culture. And there was some really interesting Fruit Loops and wet wipes there on Saturday night. There's no other way of putting it. We had some great people there that we all knew, but we also had like a group of people that were standing to my right-hand side who were apparently moaning to a friend of mine throughout the whole game that we were singing too loud, and that actually she hopes that we score an own goal because it might shut us up. And this is someone who's in the standing section, in the atmosphere section at Old Trafford. That was a dad, a wife, his girl, and a couple of kids as well. And I was just like, "What do you want?" And somebody else was moaning that we were all standing up, and the amount of people that were sitting down in the standing section was mental, to be honest. And I do think there is an issue because we spoke about it after the game, and it's a bit of a sort of like catch-22. To get Old Trafford better, we need to play a tougher team, a Chelsea or Arsenal or C. But if we do that, we lose the advantage we have at LSV being a cauldron in that respect. And because the amount of people that were clearly there not to watch the football, to get a selfie with Russo or whatever. And it just makes me really angry because, it's like, it isn't childcare. There's plenty of places you can take your children. There are so many, it's not, I'm not saying it's not suitable for kids. It is, but it's suitable for kids in the same way it's suitable for young girls as the same way that it's suitable for the young lads to aspire, for them to be inspired, for them to want to take up the game, for them to sort of dream and see their players. It's not suitable in the same way that you take them to the park, you take them on a bouncy castle, you go to Harvester. It's not the same activity, but everyone seems to think that the women's game is. And until that changes, the atmosphere is going to be shit. And it was pretty poor at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. I just first want to say hello there to Indian Scouser. I hope you are well. In terms of the game, I said, why have we got torches? Why is there a band? I didn't hear the band because obviously it's muted, but I heard about it at the end. And no one's going to ever take the women's football seriously if you're going to be having bands, if you're going to be having torches like it's a concert, people, and then you singing Sweet Caroline. We like Sweet Caroline because it reminds us of when we won the Euros, but that's not something that's related to Manchester United. You want to hear Manchester United chants all around the stadium, and I think the issue is there's so much of a diverse into the women's game where nobody likes singing, nobody likes standing up, people just prefer to clap. And I think you're always going to get that disadvantage coming into the women's game. And I did actually put on a tweet myself, which I am going to share, because you mentioned about, I mentioned about the attendance. And my attendance, what I wrote about the attendance is Newcastle women have an attendance of 1,435 less than Man United women at their men's ground, despite being, I was wrong on this one, 3 tiers lower because they're in tier 4. This questions me on what Manchester United is doing to raise publicity at the Old Trafford games, how little they take it seriously. Ari playing a band playing England songs. And then if I go scroll down, I also put Man United need to do more for advertising. Ari, programs, more in programs, more on social media, months in advance, because we're not seeing it advertised. We see it advertised once when the tickets are out, and then we see it advertised like crazy like a week before. Play our big games at Old Trafford, such as this semi-final. We should be playing Liverpool or Chelsea at Old Trafford, which we should have done. I know it was the Manchester derby the day before, but why not just quickly clean it up and then play the day after the Liverpool game? Because it is one of the biggest games in English football. That doesn't matter if it's men's football, women's football. Playing against Liverpool is always going to be a lot more sentimental to me than playing against Manchester City.
Well,
Chelsea. Why not Chelsea?
Liverpool is the lower hanging fruit because Liverpool will get people like Aggie, as you would say, would get the rivalry going, but they're not as good in the women's game. So they're the obvious one to do because it's a step up on the rivalry and it's less likely to lose against a Chelsea or an Arsenal. But obviously, I'm sure Chloe's desperate to come in after us two grabbing the mic. But before you do, I'll ask a question to both of you. Obviously, it's Sis Women on the stream. I'll ask a question to both of you. You start, Maisy. Obviously, growing up, woke up, Dad, what made you interested in football? How did you start getting interested in it?
I started getting into football through Manchester United.
TV or play at the park? Like when you
watching it on TV when I was 6 years old. Watching Ruth Van Nistelrooy.
Yeah, Chloe.
My granddad got me into it.
Well, it was what? Did you go to his to watch the game, or did you come to yours watch the game, or did you take it to it?
No, I can't. Well, my first it's a funny story. Really. My first baby girl was United.
Yeah.
My first shirt was Barcelona.
Yeah,
when I
but
was
it's
a baby.
football, isn't it? It's football, isn't it?
But I then played football myself, but
Yeah.
I always, because we didn't have Sky back in day. We didn't have Sky or anything, so it'd be going to the pub with Grandad, with my nan, with my mum, and watching it.
Yeah.
So when I was young.
And do you remember the first time you went to Old Trafford, or any? There's a method in my madness, by the way. Don't worry, I'm not interviewing you for no reason.
So I think my first game, the one I remember anyway, was Wayne Rooney's debut against Fenerbahce in the Champions League, where he scored a hat trick.
There you go. What about you? Do you remember your first game at Old Trafford, Maisy?
To be honest, I didn't go to Old Trafford till I was a teenager. That was the first time I actually went to Old Trafford, and it was, I think we won 3-1 or 3-2, and that was against QPR, because I was a massive fan of Memphis Depay, and I wanted to go just to see Memphis Depay. So it was against QPR. We watched.
And I really wish that the FA would hear this, because both of your answers could have been given by men as well as women, and that's the point. Nobody said, I went there because he had pretty light shows, and at the end I got to hold a sign. You didn't say that, did you? You said about watching Fenerbahce. You talked about QPR. People go, if you're women and men, for the same reason, to enjoy and watch the football. And I think they're scared to admit that. And I think, people, women that are passionately involved in the game, I think it'd be helpful to say, look, this is what got us into it. It wasn't the opportunity to have a selfie, though we all loved that connection. It's the football, and I think that's why the women's game's hitting a brick wall at the moment.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts anyway, Chloe, of what we've been talking about?
So I'll touch on the light bit first.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember everything that you've talked about.
Torches, attendance.
Torches and right, so I'll touch on the top.
Girls into football.
Yeah,
well.
I'll touch on the lights, the torches, whatever you want to call it first.
You can go on the band as well.
Yeah. I think the torches in the band, and if you want to add in the Mexican wave, which luckily the Mexican wave didn't happen at Old Trafford.
I heard it did.
Did we? I didn't see it.
I heard that. Well, I heard it did, and apparently it started from I think it was the Sir Bobby Charlton stand.
Yeah.
Well, the massive stand with no one there, but yeah.
Yeah, we didn't see it. So I think the torches. It happens in all the games, in all big stadiums. It always happens. It doesn't happen in the men when men play because that's.
I don't think it happened at Arsenal away, did it? But that was a great game.
It was great, yeah. I think there was a few. I think there was a few, but it didn't get to. I think because the stadium, because of Old Trafford, it wasn't full. We didn't have that other stand open. So you kind of just saw it in one direction, and when you could kind of see it. But it started off with it being the Lionesses because you never saw it last season. It started at Euros, and it was good at the Euros because it was interacting with all the European fans and all them as well. But I don't think it should come into the WSL. I don't think it should. Leave it to England. Leave it to the Lionesses. Do it at European matches. Do it at Euro qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, national team games, but leave it out of the WSL or club competitions because you don't see it when if you're at Kings Meadow, say you're at Walton Park, at the smaller stadiums, you won't see that. But because it's at a big stadium such as Old Trafford, Emirates, you are going to see it. And I think for us as well, because Emirates, like just touching on what Andy was saying about us against Arsenal when we were away, Arsenal have a lot of lights at the stadium, so it basically you wouldn't be able to see phone torches. So whereas at Old Trafford, you kind of a lot more the roof's kind of a lot more over you, so you kind of can see the torches a lot more, and there's not that many floodlights over the stadium. So I think that's why we saw it more than we did when we were at the Emirates. But yeah, I think you had the torches start from the Lionesses in the Euros. The band, you always have a band for for England Lionesses because it's the England Barmy Army band. But like you and Maisy both touched on, United have never had a band. You don't have a band at the men's, so why bring a band in for the women's game? Where's the band when we play at OSV? We don't have one, and it's only because we're at Old Trafford that the band appears. So for me, it's why is that? And it's just like it wants to build up the atmosphere because they don't think that they've got anyone who are doing the songs or who are doing the chanting. But and I'm glad that they did United songs, and they didn't do any England songs. They did United, like they did Glory Glory United. They did quite a few to be fair, but we couldn't hear them. Or when we did hear them, we started chanting ourselves because we wanted to chant the same song that they were chanting to get everyone going. But then it wouldn't happen because then everyone else stops because the band stopped, and we would stop and the band would start again, and there's just no coordination in terms of what's happening. Like for me, I think if the band was in our section where we were,
I'd say that.
I think it would have started a lot more off. I think it kind of would have built that atmosphere up, but we don't need it for United. We don't need it in the WSL. And like I said, we don't have it at OSV. Why have it at Old Trafford? So that's.
And the thing is, as well, like you don't see a band at Stamford Bridge. But you also look at the games what I played at Stamford Bridge, the top games, like against Tottenham.
Yeah.
It's your rival.
Yeah, and you also get obviously now a lot of the Champions League women games are being played at big stadiums. Like this week, that midweek, literally tomorrow and Wednesday, you've got, especially Wednesday, you've got Arsenal by Munich.
It's because of VAR being played at the men's game. Because I spoken to an Arsenal fan and they said that they had no choice but to play at the Emirates because
they haven't got it for. But just to say what I was saying though, we've discussed how you guys got inspired, into football for footballing reasons. It's not for childcare reasons, is it? Like it's patronising, I would imagine, to women to say, "Oh, well, little boys, they can get inspired by football, but you're going to get inspired by selfies." It doesn't. It's patronising, isn't it?
For me, I think if you're having pictures with your idols who you look up to in role models, then I think that's fine, because at the end of the day, you want a picture of you with one of your role models and say, this player has got me into football. If it wasn't for this player and watching this player at United, at the Lionesses, I wouldn't have gotten into football. And it's like me, especially like when I was playing football, when I used to play, I didn't have any female role models. I looked to the likes of Rooney, Ronaldo, and Van Nistelrooy, but now girls and boys are having them role models of female athletes. And that, for me, that's what's inspiring. And I think if you can say, my role model is Leslie Russo, I've had a picture with her at Old Trafford and blah, 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 then I think that, for me, that's inspiring. And I remember when I was at high school and I had to do like a project, and it was like, who's your role model? Who's this? Who's that? I couldn't think of a female role model in football at that time. So I had to say my role model was Wayne Rooney. And that for me, now that's changing. You can now say you're a female role model in football. So I think to see a lot of boys and girls having that choice and being like, my role model, like the boys are even saying, my role model is Lesser, is Jill Scott. They're not just saying Rooney, Ronaldo, Messi. They're not just saying that anymore. And that, for me, that's what's changing the game. And if we can see a lot more boys and a lot more lads in shirts with female names on the back, then that just shows how much it's changing and how much the women's game is moving forward. Because because me and Maisy follow on the men's team as well, we can say we had male role models in the men's team because they didn't have a women's team beforehand. And now that they have got a women's team, we can now say, right, our male role model is Ericsson and our female role model is Honor, or whoever you want to say. And that just shows how much the game's improving. And it's like you can have two role models in both teams and support both teams. And I think as well, like when you're at a men's game, the male footballers you don't get that chance to have selfies with a lot of the time. And I think that's what the difference is in the women's team, the women's game, because you can have selfies with the players, you can get pictures, you can get signed stuff. But with the men, they don't come to the side of the pitch to come over and sign. You've got to wait outside for God knows how many hours in the car park waiting for them. And you're waiting there 2-3 hours before they come out to get something signed. So it just shows that if you want something signed by a male player, you have to wait outside the stadium for God knows how many hours before they come out to the coach, to the car. Whereas in the women's game, you get it signed at the side of the pitch, or as they're coming out of the stadium, they're happy to sign for you. But it just shows like the importance of signing stuff and making fans happy in both the male and female women's game and the men's game. I want to ask you the same question, Maisy. What have you noticed the difference in terms of people getting photos at the men's game comparing that to getting photos at the women's game?
To be honest, it's very rare you do see a player you're getting a picture in the men's game. Like as you say, you're waiting hours on end, and a lot of them just walk past you. Like when I went to that QPR game, I wanted to get pictures with the men's players because I was like, I wanted to meet Wayne Rooney, I wanted to meet Memphis, I wanted to meet such a person, and they all walked past us. I think the only ones who didn't walk past was Schweinsteiger, and Janusai. Yeah, there was like a few of the only people who didn't walk past, and I remember a quote what Patrice Evra said, and how Sir Alex Ferguson went mad when the team just walked off. Because you need to show respect to your fans who's waited out here all this time, who's wanting to take pictures with you, who is wanting to say well done on your game and stuff like that. You're going out there and you're not coming back onto this coach until you've signed everything, until you took pictures of everyone. And they were outside for absolutely hours because Sir Alex wouldn't let him back on. And I think for me, it's about the manners and respect. And I think bringing that over to the women's game, it's just exactly what Patrice was saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not taking that away from anyone. I'm not saying that I enjoyed the pictures myself. I'm just saying that the match is advertised as Manchester United men against Arsenal. Whereas if we were playing Arsenal at Old Trafford, it'd be come on down. It's a great day out. Enjoy yourself, which is a different way of advertising it. And I think that's what the problem is.
And the thing is as well, why did they put the price up for the Old Trafford game? They put the price up to £10.
I think that's because that's probably what the walk-on price is going to be next year, and they're testing the water to see what the numbers are.
Yeah. Hey there, Andrew. Thanks for coming in. Hope you are well. Before we go on to Brighton, I just want to show you this, what I retweeted. A Man United page wrote, Man United women dominated WSL without any proper training facility, stadium or funds, only being founded in 2018. This is the Man United DNA. It's in the DNA and we're proud. I think for me, why would you write that? It's not dominance.
No, we're not dominant. Yeah, we were founded in 2018, and it's good to see that we can fight in with the top three players, the top three teams in the league, but we'll be dominating when we beat Chelsea. We have to beat Chelsea first, and until we beat Chelsea, then we're not dominating, because we have beaten every single team now, other than Chelsea. They're the only team we've not beaten. We've got a draw out of them. We've lost against them, but we've not beaten them. And until we have beaten them, for me, we're not dominating in the league.
No, exactly. I agree. And isn't our training facilities at Carrington now?
Yeah, we're at Carrington now.
Yeah, so that's already misinformation, because we train at Carrington. We don't have a proper stadium, but we actually have one of the best stadiums in the WSL.
I think
I know we rent it, but it's still. I would still rather play at LSV than play at the Wellstar Stadium, than looking at Everton's pitch, look at Sunderland's pitch, look at Lucy's pitch. I'd much rather rent at LSV, if you ask me. But what's your thoughts, Andy, on that?
No, I agree. I mean, just to see Andrew's comment. No, this is the tweet was made before the game yesterday, so Maisy showing the tweet. I think the current table, I don't know if you can get it up. The current table is a lot tighter than that. So before we get into it, I'll do that just so Andrew could see it.
Actually, wait a minute. Just
have a Google.
It was before Man City. Man City beating Chelsea. So, but even so on that table, it wasn't dominance, because it was 1 point behind Chelsea, and Chelsea had 2 games in hand at that point.
Yeah. I mean, it was clickbait. Yeah, I mean, so that's there you go, Andrew. So that's the current table for you, mate. So as you can see, 38 points for United, goal difference plus 33. Man City, goal difference 20, but again, 38 points. Chelsea, interestingly, obviously they got a game in hand, goal difference plus 25, down to 37 points. And Arsenal, goal difference plus 29, down to 35 points. It's interesting how suddenly strong City looks, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and they was crap in the first couple of games of the season. But I agree. I think it was Farrell Williams who said it, is that Man City out of the top 4 are the ones who are not being spoken about. And I do actually agree with that completely, because everyone's talking about us, everyone's talking about Chelsea. Whereas for me, I actually don't think Chelsea's looked that good this season. And I know that's riddled with injuries, and people talk about how great Sam Kerr is. Sam Kerr is great, but Beth England since January has got the same amount of goals as Sam Kerr. Like, you're not in good form, mate. It's just as simple as that. And
the amount of people, 100%. The amount of people on Twitter that were making the point. Great to see Chelsea in the mud, but how frustrating, because it should have been us. We should have had that victory at Kings Meadow, and obviously most people that were like me or further to the more extreme side of me were saying it was because how poor Skinner is as a manager. But even so, it was frustrating to see that Chelsea evidently are beatable by a team like ourselves, but we just didn't do it against Kings Meadow.
And it is mad to think, though, with City for you, Chloe, is that they've lost all these players like Lucy Bronze, Georgia Stanway, Kira Walsh, and they're still in second place. It's crazy.
I know. It is crazy, and I think for me, it just shows that once your team has fully fit players, you're gonna have a good squad. And I think because they're not in the Champions League, then they are in the FA Cup semi-final. They're not in the FA Cup not in the FA Cup anymore. And it just shows that they can now concentrate on the league, where we've got to concentrate on the league and the FA Cup. City and Chelsea and Arsenal, they've got to concentrate on Champions League, the league, and Chelsea have got to concentrate on the FA Cup as well. Whereas Arsenal have just got to concentrate on the league and Champions League. So there's only 3 teams that have to concentrate on more than one cup, one night competition. Whereas City can dominate on that now. They can go, right, we can take advantage on this. If we don't get players injured, if we don't do this, do that, we can dominate this. We can win this league. Let's have a look at what's happening at United, at Chelsea, Arsenal. They've got extra games to play, and that's probably what they're doing. And yes, Steph Horton has come back into the squad, but she's not how she was a few years ago because she's had them 2 injuries that have basically not allowed her to play for so long. And yes, it's good to see her back in the squad, but she's not going to play every game. She's going to come off the bench or start games that are important, like starting the game against Chelsea. And for Chelsea, they've lost the likes of Erin Cuthbert to injury, Millie Bright now to injury, and it just looks we've heard rumours that Emma Hayes is playing Millie Bright's injury down to very low, like it's nothing and blah blah blah. And I've also heard rumours and seen things that she's maybe done that Millie Bright's maybe done her ACL, and it's like we want to know in terms of what injury Millie's got, because we need her for the Lionesses, we need her for the World Cup. And if information like that's being held back because managers don't want other teams to know injuries, then I don't think that's right. I think you should allow information like injuries to be announced, because it's the fans that want to know. It's not just other teams that want to know. So I think for obviously we know Arsenal again, they're riddled with injuries, and Gio went off in their game and she'd only just come back from an injury. So it just shows the amount of games that we're having to play at the minute, whether you're not in the Champions League and cups and stuff, you are playing a lot. You are playing catch up with other games because of frozen pitches, waterlogged pitches, because not this week, but next week, midweek, Chelsea are having to play Liverpool in their rearranged game. That obviously their pitch was frozen, where they played 6 minutes of it. And that game should never have gone ahead in the first place. That should have been arranged anyway.
Yeah.
So it just shows that the FA need to put a lot more into it. And I've always said it, we need a lot more teams in than just 12. We need a lot more. We need more competitive now, because it's going to be the same teams going to be coming up. So if Bristol comes up next year, which we think it's going to happen, and Leicester goes down, it's then are Leicester going to come back up next season, or is it going to be someone new? It's always just going to be one team going up and down and changing. So we need to have that. We need to start, or FA need to start thinking about expanding our squad, even if it's just another 2 teams in to make it to 14. Then I think they should start doing that, and 14 teams, 2 up, 2 down, do it that way. And if it means in the Championship, you do the first team up and then it's a playoff between the second and the third for who goes up, then I think they should do that, because then it's fair. But I know people say, no, it's not fair on the second team. The second team should go up and all that. But I think for me, we need to start looking into expanding the league. But what's your thought? What are your both thoughts on expanding the league?
Before we do quickly go on it, let me just say hi to the new people as well. Hey there, Vincent. Thanks for coming in. Hope you're well. Hey there as well. Hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. We'll be supporting France. And hey, hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. A couple of new people who was from the watch along on the weekend. I'll let you go with Andy first about the expansion on the league.
Yeah, I mean, we said it on multiple pods. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it really is. Again, I don't think anyone seriously looked at it, because if they had done, there's no evidence to keep it 1 up, 1 down. If anything, you are stifling the growth in the second tier. Now, you could argue, certain people have said that it's like a big underhanded way of making sure that basically the female version of the Prem teams are in tier 1 and everybody else is in tier 2. Well, you're kind of already there apart from Reading, but because you messed around a bit, Leicester's probably going to go down, and then it's still not going to work. You can't engineer that. I mean, 2 up, 2 down would make sense, partly because of the complete unfairness of tier 3 at the minute, where theoretically you could win every game in National League North or National League South, and you could lose a playoff and not get promoted, and that's just wrong on so many levels. you can't say that's fair at all. So at least 2 up, 2 down would allow the winner of the Northern League and the winner of the Southern League to come up to the Championship. I think initially the reason why that happened was that the FA jumped the gun and they wanted the flowers, and that would say they wanted the love about being the first fully professional women's league in the world. So they did it too quick. They did it before they were sustainably ready. Hence the Oval, hence a few other issues we've had down the line. Even in the men's games, Sheffield United's wobbling a lot, and they could go into administration at any point on the second tier. But we are at a situation now where we need 2 up, 2 down. I think apart from anything else, we're interested in top 4. If you're sort of your Leicester, Brighton, you're going to be worried about going down. There's about 3 or 4 teams in the middle. They've got nothing to do, nothing to play for, and that's not the English way. That's not the football heritage that we have over here. This isn't the NWSL. Similarly, in the second division, you've got London Lionesses and City Lionesses and Bristol. Then you've got quite a few other good teams that have got nothing to do. They're not going to get relegated because Coventry's going down. It's obvious. There's a massive gap at the bottom. So they're all just kind of going through the motions now. And what are we in March? It's not the way we are in this country. But I just wanted to also knit a few other things in. I mean, I get it, Reese, with the comment about having it red for Zalem. I'll just take a bit of friendly advice from someone a little bit older. Is that the only person who gets poisoned is yourself when you do stuff like that? Because I've been there a little bit with Skinner. If you sit there and you find his presence irritating, you don't enjoy the game as much. And I dislike Skinner now. That's probably where it's got to. But I try and support Zelen, as a player on our pitch. And I know you're probably jesting a bit, but I would say you're going to enjoy the game more, mate, if you're not sitting there thinking she's shit. Why is she still on?
I just don't think of it anymore. It should be dropped. I don't It's what it is.
Go, and eventually he'll go, and then she'll probably go with him because any other manager won't play her as often as he does. And if she does get the FA Cup Winners' Medal, hopefully, if she might have an offer to go Champions League or something like that. I know she played Champions League one season for Juventus, yeah. So she might move on, and and these people aren't stupid. Skinner knows he's not liked by a lot of people. There was a sign out at Old Trafford that had Skinner out on it that I know for a fact the assistant manager saw. They're not stupid. Zelen will know the stuff that we're saying, but it just depends. How you want to view it, and it's easier to do, I think, with Zelen. But I would say she's always going to play. Try and get behind her. She's not being obnoxious about it. She's not sitting there and saying I'm the best player in the world. Annoyingly, Skinner's saying she's the best player. Just have it in that way around. But I just would say you'll enjoy the game more if you don't get as negative, because I've been there, and the only person who pulled me back was Chloe.
Yeah, but Andrew's asked 2 quick questions before we do actually move on. One about the league, about increasing the league. Are the ladies under or overplayed? And I'll go with Chloe about that.
I think for me, you can say the both, because you can say that they are underplayed because a lot of teams who don't get Champions League only have the FA Cup, Conti Cup and League. But you're only playing, at the minute, you're only playing at least, you're playing each team twice. So you're playing 22 games in a season, and that's in the league. So you can kind of say they are being underplayed in the league. But you can also then add on internationals and stuff where you can say that they are being overplayed. But you've got to think that not every player in all the teams are in international teams, or they get to the World Cup, or they get to the Euros. So you've got to, for me, I think increasing the games by 4, in terms of you increasing the league by 2, I think it's going to be good for the game. I think it's going to grow the game. And it's like what Andy touched on. You increase that, you increase the championship, and then tier 3, you get the North and the South, their winners, the winner of the North, the winner of the South, they don't have to play a playoff. They go straight up into the Championship, and I think that'll be a lot better than them winning every single match in their league to then play a playoff and only one team goes up after all the hard work. And it just I think that's what does need to change. So I think if anything, if before the WSL changes, I think the Championship will change in terms of allowing both the North and the South winners up. But it depends on how you feel in terms of players in playing over or under. If you think it's adding into internationals,
let's look at a different point of view. Then you look at, for instance, Alexia Putellas. She never got injured, and she's played. And it's a massive league, isn't it? The Spanish league, hasn't it got like full 20 teams?
Yeah, I think so.
So if you had like 20 teams, and then she'll be playing every international game, no doubt about that. But then would she be overplayed because she's still got the cups?
I think
because then you'd look at it in that way with the WSL.
Yeah, I think for me, because I watch a lot of the Spanish teams and I watch Spanish national games. Like, if you were playing a lower ranked international team, so say you're playing Montenegro, Spain were playing them, she wouldn't play them. But say you were playing the USA, France, us, she would play. So she would play the higher teams than rather play the lower ranks, because it was a given that Spain would beat them. But in terms of like the league, like, and obviously the Cups, the Champions League, Alexa will be back from her ACL very soon. She's back running, she's back on the pitch. So if Barca get through and beat Roma, she's potentially going to be back for the semi-final of the Champions League. So it's just going to for me, I think when she's back, she will play every game, because she knows that if she plays every game, if she can build that fitness up, she'll be on the plane to the world. She'll be on the plane to the World Cup. So I think that last season when she was playing, she didn't have a single game where she didn't play or she didn't come off the bench, apart from when she had COVID or injury. So I think for me, I think she can be overplayed, but she'll get rested in internationals.
That's fair enough. We'll go on to my predicted lineup for Brighton. We are going to be playing Brighton twice on a trot. One for the FA Cup, one for the league. This one is an away game. I'm literally thinking, where have I put my... There you go. There's my lineup. So I've got for Mario, Splundell, Mannion, Letizia, Honor, Zellum, Ladd, Galton, Toon, Garcia, Russo. What are you thinking of that lineup, Panda? Do you think that will happen?
Who's he going to put on at 80 minutes when he needs a goal and he puts Mannion on? No, I think. Hold up. I mean, the one he always plays with is the wingers, isn't it? Maybe he would do that. Maybe I think, but because he flogged Paris quite heavily in that game. So maybe he'd do Garcia instead, Paris instead of Garcia, but I could see that definitely be happening. I don't see Mannion starting for Millie, because she makes quite a few mistakes like Zalem does, but she doesn't have as much of a negative rap off the fan base. But I'd say possibly Millie instead of Mannion, and maybe even start Jade Riviera instead of Blundell. But it's a difficult one. I mean, does he have to do any of that? No. Does your option sound better? Yeah. But if I understood Skinner's head, then I don't know. I'd be earning a lot more money.
Well, what's your opinion on the lineup, Chloe?
I agree with that. Other than take Mannion out for Miller. Because I don't see Mannion starting. Or if she was going to start, I think Letizia might come out and it would be Millie and Mannion. Because obviously that's how it used to be. But I can't see that happening. So I think Garcia will definitely start. She proved herself She proved to the fans, she proved to the manager, the team, that she should be starting, that she should be on the pitch on the start. But it's like I said before, it's against, do you want Lucia starting against the best teams or the weaker teams that we can beat? And for me, I think she's a super sub, as we can say, but she's also an impact starter. And we know that when Garcia is going to be subbed off, it's going to be for Nikita or for Martha Thomas. We know that they're the two that we do know, and I wish I could say that she'll come off for Leon, but she won't, and that's the frustrating. But I think again, Bo Risa deserves to start, but again, she won't. And I touched on Jada Riviera. It'll be good to see her play. For me, I think she should have had that. I think she should have been allowed to come on at Old Trafford and have that experience of all the players cheering for her, and for being a United fan, what a dream come true that is for her to be at Old Trafford for her to be on the pitch. But she didn't get that game time. She wasn't put on. So yeah, I think that's definitely a very strong lineup. But yeah, Man Utd out for Miller.
The only reason why I put Man Utd in was for two reasons. One, the last two games she keeps getting subbed on, so that makes me think Skinner's want to give some more minutes under her belt. And I think if he's putting a few minutes into her, like she's starting for she's coming on for the last 10-15 minutes of the game, that makes me think she's going to be starting soon. And then with Letizia is not going to get dropped. She's our best progressive centre-back. Yeah. So there's no way she'd get dropped. Unless, of course, they put in Millie and Mannion, then they'd have to move Letizia to the full-back position or defensive mid for me. But
I would riot if Honor got dropped.
Honor will probably move to the left.
Yeah, should probably get moved.
Yeah, there'd be no way Honor would get dropped. But with Man Utd, she's an aggressive centre back, and I think the thing is with Brighton is they're a very physical side. When they're good games, they're bad games. They're very, very physical, and I think this season we have missed Man Utd in them type of games, like Reading, for instance. We really missed her in that type of game, and I think if we don't play Man Utd, I think we could potentially miss her out there as well.
I think for me as well, I think Man Utd would be good to start in the FA Cup against Brighton for me. Instead of playing her in the league game or starting her in the league game, I think she'd be best starting off in the FA Cup, because then it's more for me that, yeah, the FA Cup's important. You want the best squad out there, but I think she'll have more of an impact in the FA Cup game. And she'd have that, and she'd have had more minutes as well, in terms of obviously having to back off 2 ACLs. So yeah, I think Man Utd starting in the FA Cup would be better.
I think it just depends on which one Skinner takes more seriously. Let's be real here, but I completely agree. Though I feel bad for Leon. We all feel bad for Leon. Andrew said United need to sign Sissoko as an enforcer. No, thank you. We'll go into the questions. There was a few questions in. We'll start with Raddy's one, because we're talking about Brighton. How good or poor is Brighton?
They used to be good. They're now poor. Well, they weren't that good. They used to be like an Everton. They used to be sort of, a bit of a sort of pain in the arse, but not like a top team. But now they have struggled. Obviously, they changed their manager earlier in the year. They lost their director of football to us, Polly Bancroft. And they are struggling at the moment. I mean, I like Brighton as a city. Personally, I would like them to stay up. But they are definitely in the relegation zone. Sort of like the relegation fight. I was just finding out while we were discussing it, because this might be interesting about what you're saying about Man Utd, Chloe and Maisy, that the islands playing in the US during the international break in Texas. So now you've got jet lag involved. So would you flip it around and play her in the league and have Millie in the cup because of that reason? Millie ain't going anywhere. She doesn't play for England.
It's one of them, and it's Man Utd for me. USA, you think USA, Canada, you have to think about Jada Riviera for Canada as well, and Leon for Canada.
Yeah,
and it for me, if you can play Man Utd after her being in America, you can play Jada and Leon, but it depends on if she plays against the USA. It depends on how many minutes she has against them. But for me, I wouldn't drop Millie in the league. That's my pick.
But to think of it as well, what loyalties does my Skinner have to international managers? He doesn't technically have to play Man Utd in the league if he doesn't want to. He could just put her in the FA Cup if he really wanted to. He doesn't have no loyalties to these to the managers, because at the end of the day, it's Manchester United who's paying the wages. It's Manchester United who's doing most of the trading, and it's because of their form or whatever it is why they're getting into the in their international squad. So Matt Skinner will have a bit of a play in them getting into their international team, and but to Andrew, she did. Hope Powell. We'll go to the next question from Ravi again. Thoughts on Man United starting slow in games? Is that a concern? If you want me to be honest, though, we don't start in all our games. Start slow in all our games. You look at how we played this season. Everton, for instance, the first game. Reading for the first game. You look at trying to think of other games. We started fast in the Arsenal game because we got one goal up in the first half. So I don't say that we start slow in all our games. I think it's more of a 50-50. But I'll go with you on that, Chloe.
Yeah, I agree with you, Maisy. I don't think we start slow in every game. We can start slow in games we shouldn't do. But for me, when we were against Arsenal away, we were fast. We started out the box. We scored in the first half, and then the second. For me, it's more that after half time, that's when we are slow. If we 1-0 up, like we were against Arsenal, we were 1-0 up, and they scored literally a minute or 2 minutes after the second half began. So I think we can say like the first half, like kickoff wise, we start slow, but we don't. It's more after the halftime talk, more in the second half. If we don't have that kickoff in the second half, we're slow. So I think it just depends on what team we're playing in terms of how concerned we are of the start. And I think when we played West Ham, we started off really well, but then there was time where it was a game where we could have won. We could have had it put to bed in the first half, but we started off fast, and then in the middle it started to get slow, and then by the time it came up to nearly half time, we got fast again. And for me, that's what needs to stop. We start fast, we go slow, we end fast, and that's what our concern is in terms of how slow we are in games. It's the middle part of the play in each half where we're slow. So I think it's how we play. It's how we start the games in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, maybe it's interesting you say that, because you're right. We used to do that, and I wonder if that's maybe where the recent problems have come from. As Skinner overcompensated because we were losing. We were sluggish in the second half. Because now we're paralytically slow in the first half, and we really frustrate each other. And then we turn it on and do the light show with the subs in the second half. Has he gone the other way? Has he overcorrected, possibly, the problem that he had? But then I also look at some of the top teams like Bayern this weekend in the Frau Bundesliga, like Barcelona. And actually, yeah, they always win. But the first 20, 25 minutes, most of the time, Barcelona, they are not, even if they're playing like a really rubbish team in La Liga Femenino, they're not like running them up and down the pitch. They're in control. They're not like, Panos hasn't got much to do, but they do what we do, which is weird. They kind of just like are a bit neutral and slowly turn it up. Then the first goal comes in and it's bang, 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 bang. And to an extent, that's kind of what we do in second half as well. But it's interesting. It's a great point that Chloe was making there, because I never occurred to me, but I think that's what's happened. I think he's overcorrected. I think he started teaching about second half and how to deal with the second half. And now we've become too slow in the first half and very strong in the second half. Possibly best example, Maisy, of a bad manager. He's not good enough to. He's overcorrected. It's like you're driving down you're driving your car along the road. It starts drifting to the right, so you correct to the left. But what Skinner's done, it started drifting to the right, and he's gone and crashed into a tree. That's what in the right way that he's done it.
And we'll go on to this next question now. Thoughts on United shaping games and the over-reliance on the creativity of Honor. Are you worried we don't have enough players trying to be more creative in moments? I think for me, we do have creative players. We've seen Garcia, the creative moments. Nikita Paris, we've seen creative moments from her. Got Leah Galton. She's been one of our best creative players this season. The way she's able to cross the ball, and I think she really worked on her corners. Like, she's been fantastic on her corners. What I've seen, I think there was only one poor corner, and that was against Chelsea. So she's done very well. So I'm not worried about the lack of creativeness, but I don't think we are lacking creative. But I do think that Honor, she is the main source. If you get what I mean, like she is in the double digits in all comps for assists, and you can understand why. She's a fantastic fullback, but I don't think that we're not creative either.
Yeah, and I'll just remind everybody, and Skinner as well. Honor is one of the worst paid players in the Man United squad. I'll let people settle that down into their heads a little bit. She is one of the lowest paid members of the squad. I assume taken out of Carrie Jones and that, out of the sort of main squad, the sort of non-academy players. Like, that's mental. And, what Reese is saying, which is that, we do rely on her. She's world class. Why we haven't tied her down yet, God knows. And I said to Chloe, if she goes anywhere but Barca or but Spain, it's our fault. Because, she goes back to Spain, wants to play back in Spain, Catalan origin, I get it. She will eventually go back to Spain. But if she goes anywhere else apart from Barcelona or other Spanish team, it is literally our fault. It's literally Man United's fault, because she would have been there for the taking, and we have made a conscious decision not to pay her the money, and that is what's really, really difficult. Now, you might say, why is that the case? Well, Honor she wasn't like completely. Chloe will know more about this because she follows the Spanish league a bit stronger than I do. I do watch a bit. She wasn't exactly unknown, but she wasn't a superstar. She came from Levante, Barca B, then to Levante. She was getting some good noise, but she wasn't world class. She came over mainly to avoid the €500,000 fee that they have in Spain about paying people that have trained you if you move anywhere before 22, unless it's abroad. And actually, she's turned into a world class player. And I think, I think that's down to United and what we've done at United, what Casey done and what Mark's done at United, as much as it kills me to say. And there's another quote up there, wasn't about Grace Clinton. I'd love to keep Grace Clinton, but she could easily turn into another Ebony Salmon. If we don't treat her right and she goes away, she could be world class for somebody else. We need to find a way to bring people through and have that longevity as a club of success.
Mm-hmm. I'll go on with you as well about this, about Honor.
Yeah, I think you both are right. She is our creative player. She's the most creative player we've got. And then you've got Leah as well. And in some games you've got Nikita. In other games you've got you've got Garcia. And our wingers, they are very creative. But when you play the right play the right wingers in the right games, then you have the best creativity on the pitch. And playing Leo every week for me is one of the best things we do in our league or in our team. We always play Leo unless she's injured. And then it's always the other side where we change between Paris and Garcia. So for me, Honor, she has to decide. She knows Lucia like the back of her hand because of playing with her in Spain. But she's had to learn how to play. She had to learn how to play with Kirsty Hansen and how creative and how well they played together and how well they gelled. And that worked last season. And then obviously Kirsty's gone to Aston Villa and playing really well. And Nikita's now in and she's having to learn it all again and how well does this partnership work? What can we do? Like, what are the creative parts between us both on wingers? If I go here, you back me up behind. And there's that much creativity that Honor does that we don't realise. And for me, Hannah, she didn't have a lot of creativity, but she's quick on the wing and she's quick in terms of passing and getting the ball up to Leo or Tooney, whoever's on that wing. And just touching on what Andy said in terms of the Spanish league and how Honor came over to us. Honor was in a list of, like Andy said, I think it was either under 21s or under 22s, where they either had to sign a contract saying that they wouldn't go to teams and had to stay at that team until they were 21, 22, or they could go abroad, whether it was to an English team, a French team, and others, and play there for 2 years. And they had to sign a 2-year contract, and then they were allowed to come back to Spain to play for the Barca team, other teams. So I think, like Andy touched on, he's right. Like, Honor started off at Barca B, then she moved on loan to Levante, and then came back to Barca B, and then I think Barca B released her to Levante, or Levante paid for transfer, and then she played there, and then that's when all this contract started about the money. If you wanted to stay in Spain or something like that, you have to pay. You have to sign this agreement that you won't get paid over a certain amount. So whether that has been, whether she signed that, or whether, because I think all players had to sign it anyway, so that they're on this contract of how much they were being paid. Then when she came over here, I don't think she was under that contract necessarily, but she had to sign so much. I think it was so much of a contract in terms of how much salary it was. So, yeah, she might be the lowest paid player, but for me, I think United do rate her highly. I think if she didn't get paid that much, or if she didn't have to be paid that much, then I think she would have been paid a lot more. And now it's just trying to work out that, because she's out of this contract now, she's now got 3 months left on her contract where she's allowed to speak to other teams. And Honor always wants to go back to Barcelona because that's where her family live. That's where her best friends are. Her friends are, her best friends are, her family are. But now she's got that many Spanish girls over here in Layla, in Leah, in Dana, in obviously Lucia. Then you've got like a collective that she could stay in England, but play for a completely different team in the Super League. And that's the concerning part for me, that I would be happy for her to go anywhere, but not to a WSL team, not to one of our rivals like City, Arsenal, Chelsea. And I think if we obviously got Champions League, then that for us, that's where we're going to tie a lot of our players down, because I remember I can't remember who it was, but someone said that the players that are out of contract, especially Mary, Ulysses and your Honor, they're waiting until the end of the season to see what we get. And if we get Champions League, they will sign that contract. But if we don't get Champions League, then they have a decision to make, and that decision will have to be very rapid. and very quick, because obviously they've only got till end of June to make that decision, or they're released as a free transfer, unless they have an option like Hayley Ladd or Millie Turner. Well, no, I know she's signed, but unless you have an option to extend. So I think Mary does have her option, so she can obviously automatically extend. Whereas Honor and Leslie, I don't think, do have their options.
No.
So they're the two that we need to focus on and get their contracts done. And yeah, we've heard that they've had talks and they've broken down because of the money and this and that. But we don't necessarily know what they've been offered. We don't know how many years they've been offered to State United, what their salary they've had, how much have increased, has it happened. And now all that's been like kind of left behind, because now United are getting these owners. We're waiting to see what investment these owners will put into the women's game. And we never hear a lot about the women's game or what these new owners will do for the women's game. And I think as well, that's the players are looking at what's going to happen with that, and in terms of what the owners are thinking for the women's game. And then obviously it's got to be down to Polly and Mark and Martin in terms of what contracts players get. So I think as long as we can tie down Honor and Russo, then I think we'll all be happy. But I don't want to see Honor and Russo both go to a WSL team.
Yeah, as I say, I think if she goes anywhere else, bar Spain, it's our fault, because that means she was happy to stay abroad. We've not offered her something. We've not done that. I mean, I think also as well, I mean, just looking at what Reese was saying there as well, who's the highest paid player? My gut feeling might be Ella Toon, but I doubt it.
I was thinking Toon.
Because she's never really wanted to leave. She's too happy in the job, in a sense. So I know they signed her to a long-term deal, but was she really negotiating hard? We don't know. But,
Zelen?
Possibly, yeah, I bloody hope not. But yeah, Zelen. But my other gut feeling might be Lisa, because she's the freshest contract we've negotiated.
I can't see Lisa. Something I was thinking either Toon or Zelen, to be honest, because I don't know whether be. I don't know.
Toon. I think it's going to be. I think Toon might be one, and maybe Leah, and maybe Mary.
Mary might become. I mean, to be honest, I think this is the order of things for me. I think we need to keep Honor above anybody else. I don't want to get rid of Mary, but I think we can work it out. I don't want to get a Russo, but I don't think we can work it out. If we lose Honor, and if the god from Birmingham thinks that Jade Riviera is gonna be a replacement, she might be, but who knows? And we should have both of them. But I would say Honor is a must. And it's interesting because 6 months ago we'd say Russo was a must, but I think for the way we play, we can find the keeper if we really had to, though a club like United shouldn't have to. We could possibly make it work in relation to strikers because of the way he plays his silly little formations, but we need to keep Honor. We really need to keep Honor.
Yeah, nothing's. I've been trying to Google who is obviously the highest paid. I couldn't find anyone.
The other thing as well is what Andy was touching on is we love to keep Honor, but does Honor want to stay? That's another thing. It's all down to the player. Like Mark, Polly, Martin can all want Honor to stay. Can all give her that contract. The fans can go, we want you to stay. Sign the contract, but does Honor want to stay, or does she want to go back home, or does she want to go to another team and get new adventures? So we don't know what's going on in Honor's head. We don't know what she's thinking. We know she loves the team. We know she loves the game, and we know she loves the fans. But does she want to move on and have a new chapter in France, in Germany, or back in Spain, or does she want to stay? That we've just got to hope that she wants to stay, and it's not just the club pushing her and pressuring her into staying. Because at the end of the day, we want happy players staying at the club, and if they're not happy staying, then it's up to them what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. I will finish off with this final question about Clinton. I know Andy's already touched on it, but for me, in terms of the reloaning for Clinton, it's gonna be depending on who goes in the summer for me, because we've got 12 players out of contract. I know we've read that Hayley Ladd's looking at extending a contract, which is great news. I know Zellen will be staying because she's already extended to around 2025 or something. So we know we've got Zellen, but then we're losing out on Bo Visa, for instance. We haven't got Jade Moore there anymore. Estelle Casarino will be going back to a parent club. So if we're working this out, we're going to probably end up only with 3 midfielders if we don't obviously extend, even 2 if we don't extend Hayley Ladd. So I think if we are short on midfielders, I would actually keep Grace Clinton. But if not, I would actually loan her to a WSL club. But what's your thoughts, Chloe?
I think for me, if she's going to get more experience out on loan, I think we should. But like you touched on, we've got that many players out of contract. We've got Jade Moore out of contract, Borisa out of contract. We've got Ivana. We've got Kirsty Hansen.
Yeah.
We've got, obviously, like you said, Casarino's going to go back to Lyon. We've got, obviously, I think I said Borisa. Katie Zellem's already extended. Tooney's already extended. We've only just signed Lisa. We've got Leah Galton. I think, is she up now or is she up next year?
Leah Galton's up the following year, I believe.
So I think, so Leah's safe. Lucia's safe. Nikita's safe. Grace, I think, is very good for us. But if she and obviously you've got Carrie Jones as well. And we all want Hayley Ladd to stay because she is our defensive midfielder. And I think she's our only one other than, I think, Lisa and Jade. So I think if you think Kirsty's probably going to leave. Yeah. Ivana might leave.
I think Bo Reese's gone. Especially if Skinner stays.
Yeah, Bo Reese might be gone. And then obviously Hayley I think is going to resign, which I think we'll all be happy about. Obviously then you've got the likes of Carrie Jones coming back. Do you loan her back out? Like Grace, do you loan both of them back out? What do you do with Ivana? Because she's been playing well over there. Does she want to stay in Germany because that's where her family are? Or does she want to come back and try and get in the squad? But again, you've got that bit of where you think, is she going to be another player that just sits on the bench and not get played where she's getting paid at Bayer Leverkusen? So again, she's going to have to think about where she plays and does she want to stay or does she want to move on and get more game time? And it's the same about Kirsty Hansen because she's now, the way she's playing at Aston Villa can get her into contention with our squad because she's playing at her best that I've ever seen her play, especially last season. So for me, it's going to be a toss-up. It's going to be, if Kirsty Hansen decides she wants to stay, what do we do about Grace and Carrie?
I think there's more chance of me marrying Mark Skinner than her staying. To be honest, I think she dislikes him as much as we do. I base that on information that I can't really say, but I know that she's not happy with the current coaching situation. Whereas you could say possibly that she's playing better at Villa because she is empowered by Carla Ward. She is feeling valued. She is feeling like she can express herself, and that situation. But another interesting thing that occurred to me when we saw Mary go down with a knock a little bit at Old Trafford, like she did at Lewis as well, is we have such a drop off between our number 1 and number 2 keeper. If you compare the other top 3 teams, we need to. I know it's really hard of a keeper because no keeper wants to stay on the bench. But if you look at Barca, if you look at Lyon, if you look at Arsenal, if you look at Man City, if you look at Chelsea, they all have a world-class number 1, but also a really strong number 2. And, and no thinking of Sophie Bagley, she seems really nice. I like her as far as I can tell as a personality. But there was a few people on the stand on Saturday, Chloe and Taylor, were like, oh God, Sophie, because it would be such a drop-off to lose Mary for Sophie. And I think we need to get, especially if we're going to have Champions League, if we're going to have a bit of Conti, if we're going to have the FA Cup, we need a stronger second keeper as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And with that, we'll wrap it up for the day. Thank you both, Andy and Chloe, for coming on. It's been a great show as always. Andy, would you like to shout out your socials?
Yeah, so at the minute it's at AJL_87, and I'll be the sleep-deprived, really angry person on a minibus on Saturday. Hopefully going down to watch a Brighton win. If it's anything else, I'll be the sleep-deprived weirdo that chases Skinner around Crawley with a pickaxe. It's a joke, by the way, just to be clear. And I would say also, if you're going to do this, Maisy, I would say hopefully it'll be a 3-0 win for United.
Oh, yeah, forgot about the score predictions. Yeah, fingers crossed, 3-0. Thank you as well, Chloe, for coming on. Would you like to shout out your score prediction and your socials?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on again, Maisy. It's been a great podcast with you both. I love doing these. My score prediction is I'll go 4-0 United. My Twitter's there, Chloe Riley 14. Yeah, I'll also be going to the Brighton game on Saturday. So
that'll be back if we lose.
So yeah.
Yeah.
What's your score prediction, Maisy?
2-0. I just think it's so early. The travel is so early as well. It's just
we covered our bases 2, 3, and 4. So one of us is going to be right.
Yeah, one of us is going to be right. I'm not happy here that Ravi's predicted us to win, because it does the exact same. The exact opposite happens when Ravi predicts something. So I am very, very nervous. So thank you both for coming on. I'll be live as well this week with John Sinclair. We'll be doing the Newcastle preview. So go and check that out with me and John. Hit that like button and subscribe button, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.